In 2015, I was 21 and beaming with excitement that I was pregnant with our first child, same time as my sister too. At a routine checkup at 23 weeks, I was scanned to find out I hardly had any amniotic fluid. We were told the devastating news that our baby had no kidneys, no bladder, very bad spina bifida, holes in his heart and brain damage. But yet his heart was beating perfect. He didn't know once he was out of my womb that he had no chance of survival. I felt sick, numb, and I felt robbed. I ran outside, sat on a bench at the side of the hospital, sobbing my heart out with loads of people walking by me. One man stopped. He never asked what's wrong, but just wrapped his arms around me and said, "You will be okay, pet." I just cried my eyes out and he walked away. I will never forget that man. The hospital was referring me to another hospital, but they said it could take 2 or 3 days. I couldn't wait, so I went straight for a private scan that day. On the way, I was praying so hard to everyone in heaven, to God, please let them be wrong. It was a mistake. My baby will be fine, please. We got there and paid around €170 for the scan. The woman was lovely. She scanned me and I could see straight away it was bad news. She tried so hard to get me a picture of the baby's face on a 3D scan, left the room and came back in with 2 envelopes, one with the scan pictures and the other with our money back. She said she couldn't accept it. We then went to the Rotunda hospital a few days later. I remember sitting in the waiting room. All the other women there were pregnant. It was all so upsetting. Why me? Why my baby? Again, got scanned and told even worse news about my poor little baby, pushing the scanner on me so hard because I had no fluid. It was so hard for them to see the baby. My stomach was sore for days after each scan. I asked was there even a 1% chance, and I was told 0% chance of survival. We were brought into a tiny room then. I thought they would tell me I would be started or they were going to give me a C-section. Never in my life did I think they would tell me I have to continue with the pregnancy until he dies inside me or I make it to full term or go to Liverpool to get induced. I just remember standing up and feeling my world turn upside down. How could this be happening to me? I stood up and my body just went into shock. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I started to get sick, and while I was getting sick, I started to wee myself. I just went into complete shock. If I continued with the pregnancy, I would have to keep going to Dublin weekly for scans just to see if his heart stopped beating. So I was just waiting for my baby to die. Everyone knew I was pregnant. We got the money together and decided we would go to Liverpool. I felt so depressed and sad. It was like I was grieving and my child wasn't even dead yet. Everything was booked. We had to go back to the Rotunda for my final scan in Ireland. They were hoping his heart would have stopped beating so I wouldn't have to travel and have him at home. How horrible to be even told that. But there he was, his heart beating away, not knowing what was ahead. I was starting to have doubts. The midwife was so lovely. She told me if I did continue on, more than likely his heart would stop beating or I could give birth, and his back was so bad it could break during birth, and his lungs would have been filled up with the fluid, so it would be so hard for him to breathe. I felt so sick. I wanted to see my baby open his eyes. I would have loved to spend an hour with him, a minute, any time. But for his sake, I couldn't. I couldn't put him through that. I was absolutely petrified. On Tuesday morning, we went to the Women's Hospital for my final scan to make 100% sure that he was very sick and had no chance of life. And again, we were given even more bad news. The lady that was scanning me went into detail with everything. It was all so much to take in. How could all this be happening to my little boy? I was induced and stayed the night. I would never forget the pain I was in Wednesday morning, and then my mum and dad and sister walked into the room, and my partner's mum and sister walked in. It was so emotional. I couldn't believe they came over. My partner had set it up. They were there in the room the whole time until he was born. 10 hours later, my little boy was born still at 27 weeks. I carried him for 4 weeks, knowing he was going to die, and it was hell. He was so beautiful, so perfect on the outside, but yet so timid. He was so beautiful, so perfect on the outside, but yet so damaged on the inside. We left on Saturday and travelled home by boat. We were told his tiny white coffin had to be in the boot of the car for the journey home. It was awful, but I was just thankful I could get my baby home. I wouldn't have been able to leave without him. We laid him to rest the next day. It was Mother's Day, my first ever Mother's Day. Luke was 3 last week, and I think about him every minute of every day. This isn't my story. Is it yours? Or your mother's? Your sister's? Your daughter's? We can't help this family, but we can help the next couple who receive this devastating news by repealing the 8th Amendment and giving doctors the power to take care of couples like this at home where they belong. There is no other way. Remember their stories. It's time to vote yes.